March, Jeff Haney, the CEO of Austin-based programming organization Pinpoint, was outfitting to discover new office space. Pinpoint's $25,000 per month rent with WeWork for 1,800 square feet would be up in August, and the time had come to proceed onward. He was thinking he'd need perhaps 10,000 square feet for his developing organization, which makes programming for software engineers. At that point the pandemic hit, and alongside it, the implemented work-from-home requests, and Haney started scrutinizing his figures. A study he directed a month in uncovered that generally 50% of the organization's 27 Austin representatives would be splendidly glad to keep telecommuting. Perhaps Pinpoint could get by with 3,000 or 5,000 square feet, not exactly a large portion of the measure of room he'd thought he required, previous work areas for fundamentally a meeting room and a little community-oriented working space. What's more, perhaps, given that less representatives may need to drive normally or during heavy traffic, it could be in an area far less expensive than the Domain, the hot tech group where Facebook and Amazon additionally have workplaces. It's not something I was in any event contemplating a month and a half prior, however it's certainly something I've been discussing now with my financial specialists, Haney says. By and large it's a success win. This is only a glimpse of something larger. From new businesses and tech mammoths to progressively old-school Wall Street firms, organizations are reconsidering the job of office space and whether they even need it. In the event that, in the old world, an office was a type of corporate peacocking, an ostentatious area in some famous structure with a boutique inn level of plan for customers, representatives, clients, and financial specialists, in the new world, it is turning into an expensive detail that could be diminished to what could be compared to a solitary leader store. Rather than a rambling, capital serious, certifiable impression, all the work should be possible for all intents and purposes, with one downsized emblematic command post left for basic up-close and personal discussions, such as meeting with customers or charming ability. Maybe in a space very little greater than your normal Le Pan quotidien. It's something nobody could have anticipated 3 months back. Following a time of financial extension, business rents had ascended to a normal of almost $30 per square foot, or 3.4% over a year ago, as per an April report from Newmark Knight Frank, a New York-based business land financier firm with workplaces in somewhere in the range of 100 U.S. urban communities. Numerous organizations had an abhorrence for remote work. IBM, for one, dropped telecommuting in 2017, and few had the innovation or foundation to make it work consistently. IBM was not really alone. At the beginning of the emergency, remote work evangelist and Basecamp Prime supporter David Heinemeier Hansen Twitter disgraced many organizations, including Accenture, Cognizant, Epic Systems, Tesla, SpaceX, and Wells Fargo, for hauling their heels in permitting representatives telecommute. Presently, over 2 months in, the mass work-from-home test has constrained numerous organizations out of their usual range of familiarity, pushing them to make the fundamental little interests in virtual foundation. Indeed, even normally grave money-related firms like Morgan Stanley and Barclays have adjusted, discovering answers for security jumps that recently forestalled a disseminated workforce. Huge numbers of these organizations are understanding that it isn't just less terrifying than they envisioned, yet their representatives are in reality progressively gainful. One investigation of Server Action found that laborers are placing in longer workdays. Envision what that sort of profitability lift may appear as though when kids at last return to class. Presently, gazing intently at the barrel of a downturn, organizations are moving into cost-cutting endurance mode, and the enormous fixed expense of office space will, for some, be first in peril. Since the pandemic, Google's parent organization Alphabet pulled out of arrangements to obtain in excess of 2 million square feet of office space. An examination by Squarefoot, which has practical experience in helping organizations discover office space, found that organizations in New York City spend a normal of $17,020 per representative every year on office space. As organizations battle to endure, that is a horrendous part of money to consume on something that, it turns out, can be supplanted by space in workers' homes. Numerous business leases, which are regularly 10 years, expect organizations to take care of everything for unusable space, for example, segments and basic components just as a segment of shared zones, for example, the entryway, washrooms, and lifts. In addition to other things, a 10-year rent helps lock in costs, something attractive in the midst of monetary development, however a potential stranglehold now. Thus comes the workplace space departure. Since the pandemic, Google's parent organization Alphabet has pulled out of arrangements to procure in excess of 2 million square feet of office space, including what might have been the greatest land bargain in the Bay Area, as indicated by the information. James Gorman, the CEO of Morgan Stanley, as of late disclosed to Bloomberg that the organization has demonstrated it can work with successfully no impression and will have significantly less land later on. Safety net provider and budgetary administration supplier Nationwide reported designs to close 5 workplaces, for all time changing those representatives to telecommuting. We've been putting resources into our innovative capacities for quite a long time, and those ventures truly took care of when we expected to change rapidly to a 98% work-from-home model, CEO Kurt Walker said in an organization explanation. Groupon, which is of late laid off or furloughed generally 44% of its workforce, is hoping to sublease 150,000 square feet in its Riverside Central station, says the Chicago Tribune. What's more, on Friday, land advancement startup Cul-de-sac declared it would be surrendering its San Francisco home office. "Remote work is going extraordinary for us," tweeted Prime supporter Ryan Johnson. In the meantime, business specialist Newmark Knight Frank is getting a great deal of solicitations from customers needing to cut back their present space, says Roy Abernathy, the organization's head of worldwide corporate administration's working environment procedures. "I was simply on a consider where the CFO stated, 'I need you to return to the landowner and shed 25% of our space.' As we sink into the possibility that things probably won't come back to typical until 2022, urban communities are as of now beginning to lose their sheen. Laborers pay a premium to live there, for expressions of the human experience, for the social surface, for the employments. However, with the finish of the pandemic no place in sight and the freshly discovered capacity to work from any place, ability is now getting restless. Soon urban areas' most skilled laborers escape extravagant urban communities for progressively extensive, reasonable spaces somewhere else in the nation. What's more, rents for office space in huge urban communities, once prized for their thickness of ability and mass travel choices, and now attempting to adjust in the period of social separating, could start to fall. There isn't sufficient information yet to decide precisely how much office rents may decay, and it will shift impressively by showcase, says Alexander Paul, Newmark's senior overseeing chief and head of national research. Up until now, there hasn't been a perceptible fall in costs, even in costly markets hit hard by the coronavirus, as indicated by Yardi Matrix information arranged by Commercial Cafe, a land posting firm that gave examination at Marker's solicitation. Costs stayed consistent in New York City, a normal of $85.84 per square foot in March, $85.93 in both April and May, and up 12.6% from a year ago, and even rose marginally in downtown San Francisco, $92.13 in March, $93.29 in April, $93.55 in May, up 0.6% from a year ago. That is likely on the grounds that rents are truly delayed to react to financial downturns, clarifies Jack Burns, overseeing head of inhabitant portrayal firm Cresa, taking note of that in the previous 3 downturns it took about a year after the downturns topped before land costs mirrored those downturns. Land costs are driven by gracefully and request, and when there's a great deal of opportunity, landowners get progressively adaptable and drop the rents since they need an inhabitant, he says. However, at this moment, opening are truly low, and they will be until we kind of overcome what we're experiencing in the following a half year. And afterward we're going to see a great deal of room up for sublease, and that will mess up the gracefully chain and power proprietors to drop costs. It likewise might be quite a while before the residue settles on the grounds that such a significant number of organizations have long rents. Groupon's, for instance, is through January 2026. This may likewise stop our relationship with the just about 150-year-old idea of the high-rise, which showed up in New York and Chicago in the late 19th century as engineers attempted to get the most cash flow per square foot of land just as answer the developing interest for professional office space. progressively sheltered and quick lifts additionally totally changed the market, upper floors, with their emotional perspectives and expelled from the commotion and residue of the road, instructed higher rents. Workplaces themselves became progressively sumptuous, with the New York Times in 1981 taking note of a pattern for extravagant break rooms, and from that point onward, an ever-heightening comforts weapons contest. We'll take your candy machine and wellness focus and raise you a golf test system, a pooch run, and a complimentary nail salon, in addition to luxury private restrooms festooned with 20,000 pennies or wall paintings of sea waves. Presently it's difficult to envision needing to pack into a lift to get up to these spaces. Just like the case after 9/11, lower floors may briefly order higher rents than the sky scratching ones post-pandemic, to some degree on account of the coordinations required to shield an excessive number of individuals from having a similar lift air. The reasonable purge could have sweeping results since business land has for some time been adored by enormous annuity assets and individuals searching for dependable salary, two gatherings that will see a portion of their cash vanish. The business has verifiably been steady to such an extent that 15%, or even 5%, of inhabitants contemplating space in an unexpected way could truly destabilize the market, says Dror Poleg, creator of Rethinking Real Estate and co-seat of the Urban Land Institute's Technology and Innovation Council in New York. It's an exhausting sort of benefit class that is turning into much less exhausting, he says. The present emergency will overturn business land, making a huge difference from rent terms to the executives to financing. For the present, those in the business are to a great extent concentrated on upgrading office space for the new truth of social removing, repurposing gathering rooms with work areas, including touchless entryways and temperature sensors, and reworking furniture and signage to coordinate laborers clockwise through the space without backtracking, the manner in which numerous supermarkets are currently coordinating customers. There's such calculated unpredictability that land benefits firm Cushman & Wakefield made a 300-page manual to enable 10,000 customers to come back to work in China. Fortunately for the remainder of its customers, it has since been refined into 30 pages. The organization, which presented an idea it calls the 6 Feet Office, likewise hopes to do a lively business in recoup status, with a level charge structure for modifying rules up through the more costly space examining and change the executives. In the interim, Newmark is hustling to include a COVID overlay to manufacture outs that are as of now in progress. That implies contracting singular workplaces so there can be a greater amount of them. Common meeting rooms, at any rate until further notice, are a relic of days gone by as well. Seat requesting has come to a standstill. Design firms are foreseeing a blast of what Nina Martin, executive of working environment at engineering monster Gensler, calls Swiss Armed Force blade furniture that can be effortlessly altered for various employments. There will be progressively nimble seats with a little surface you can lay your PC on the off chance that you need to take notes during a gathering, she says. These would have been useful, for instance, at an ongoing Gensler meeting in China, where as opposed to sharing a table, workers had their PCs and tablets in their laps. As of now, design firms are foreseeing that workplaces may never again be places where people assemble to accomplish their work in equal, however visit in some cases to team up. We believe that in the following 3 to 5 to 7 years there will be a decrease of area and organizations being extremely keen about what they're doing in their space, says Martin. Up until this point, none of the activities in her locale of Austin have been dropped, she says, just stopped. On the off chance that, in the old world, an office was a type of corporate peacocking, a conspicuous area in some notorious structure with a boutique inn level of plan for customers, representatives, clients, and financial specialists, in the new world, it is turning into an expensive detail that could be diminished to what might be compared to a solitary leader store. A radical reconsidering of space is as of now occurring at EverQuote, an online protection commercial center with 300 workers and 38,000 square feet in Cambridge, Massachusetts. The organization had grown out of its space and figured it would do what organizations have constantly done: you develop, you get more space, says Elise Neumeier, its Central Individuals official. Be that as it may, the work-from-home analysis has gone all around okay that the organization is presently thinking about simply recalibrating the current office into an off-site space to be utilized for enormous arranging days and group building withdrawals. Re-examining Real Estate's Poleg says office inhabitants will need, and will probably get, greater adaptability and more assistance, which is less about contribution fermented tea and pool tables and increasingly about landowners representing organizations' evolving needs. This would be as a distinct difference to the current dynamic, where organizations have small arranging power between leases. The Newmark Knight Frank report implicitly recognizes this, taking note of that building proprietors may decide to utilize concessions as the principal vehicle for satisfying inhabitant needs on by and large inhabitants' costs, instead of lessening asking rents. With record joblessness, an exceptional financial emergency, and a remote work arousing, those in the $2.5 trillion office space market ought to freeze. In any case, few are prepared to surrender to that thought at this time, in any event openly. Many point to different predictions of fate the business experienced after SARS, distraught bovine malady, and 9/11, which never worked out as expected. We overlook our fears speedier than you might suspect, Abernathy says. After 9/11, there was in any event the speculation that nobody would need to be in an elevated structure once more. Business land specialists state that organizations contracting their workplaces will be counterbalanced by those now really extending their impression for social removing. Space per individual in workplaces has contracted about 8% since 2009, as indicated by a report from Cushman & Wakefield. Social separation could require an inversion. Squarefoot CEO Jonathan Wasserstrom concedes that the subsequent quarter is going to be extremely terrible for his organization, however he will not accept this could spell the finish of office life as we probably am aware it. There's a 0% chance that the workplace is dead, he says. The way that remote work works doesn't mean it's better in the long haul. After every one of the reserve funds associated with shedding 78 million square feet of office space wasn't sufficient to keep IBM working remotely in 2017, however 3 years back should be another lifetime. Others in the business concur with him. I believe it will be a decent condition. You'll have increasingly loosened up thickness yet less individuals in the space, says Brian Berthold, a senior overseeing chief of Cushman & Wakefield and the organization's lead on working environment procedure. Be that as it may, the net-on-net is most likely a similar impression. I don't think there will be a frightening change. Spencer Levy, a senior financial counsel for land speculation firm CBRE, contends that the tech business moved away from flex work around 7 or 8 years back in light of the fact that they found the workplace was a better route than work, prodding the amenitization of the workplace. Sure, Levy says, we're out of nowhere having a second where individuals are acknowledging they probably won't need this space, yet actually you haven't required office space for in any event the previous 10 years, however individuals despite everything need it.